Good Friday morning, everybody.
Good
What's going
morning.
out there? How are we doing? Who's going to get us started with some good vibes? Who's got something good going on in their life? What
Well,
do we got?
my buyer did get a concession for them to clean out the house.
Nice. Nice. Everybody's happy.
Absolutely.
All right. What else we got? Quiet group this morning. It's a Friday. We're supposed to be excited. It's the weekend. All right. Well, let's just get into some personal growth stuff. I'll start with the messaging. I've been trying to deliver for a couple of days now, but we've been deep and so dive into the NAR stuff. It's kind of gotten pushed back here. But um, looking at the different ways that people collect information has been really interesting, I would say, for me over the years. Always a good student, kind of did the normal stuff. And just kind of realized once you kind of get out into the workforce, raise a family, the basic schooling really isn't helping you to succeed. And so probably later than I would have liked in my life, I really started to rely on mentors and coaching and conferences and to try and collect as much information as I could. And I've looked at some of these people. The most interesting thing is some of my colleagues that I started with in the Tom Ferry organization, and how they've grown over the years or not grown over the years. And I think it's kind of putting people into really three buckets on information and how do they utilize it. And so the first bucket is just no information collecting. No conferences, no podcasts, no reading, no self improvement, just kind of going with the flow. And obviously, I think that's a big mistake. We just have access to so much stuff these days that if you're not putting positive and information into your brain every single day that you can, there's just no excuses. It's not a wealth gap anymore when it comes to the information that is out there. Everybody's got access to it. So group number one, they don't even try and seek out the information. Group number two seeks out the information, but doesn't take action on that information. And this is the one that's been the most intriguing for me, because when you get into coaching, it's not cheap. Most of the coaches that I have hired, I would have never imagined spending the kind of money that I've spent for these mentors and for these coaches. So for me, I took it serious. If they were going to tell me to do something, I was going to take action on that. And I look at some of these people, I've seen it the same with agents. They get the information, they come to the conference, I see them a year later, no changes, no action has been taken. And so obviously the third group is they collect the information, they soak it up, and then they take action on that information. And then I think there's even a distinction amongst that group. I was reading the other day about what they're calling the information action gap. And it's the amount of time that it takes you to act on the information that you acquire. And the people that are making the biggest strides in their life, whether that's in their personal side or their business side or whatever side, is a razor thin gap. And I definitely feel this about myself. I consume something, I try and put it into play that day, the next day, that week. And it doesn't mean that it's always got to work or you always got to do it. You might just get some information that stops you from doing something else. But the psychology right now and the data and the science is suggesting that the smaller that gap is between information and action, the more likely you are to make progress towards whatever goal it is that you're seeking. So I just wanted to kind of challenge everybody today to what are you doing with the information that you're getting? Are you just somebody that's just constantly getting information but never takes action? Are you slow to take action? And is there anything that you can do to close that gap? So I don't know if anybody has anything that they want to share around this topic, maybe a piece of information that, you recently got that you took action on right away and it changed your life, or, something that you got some information and it stopped you from doing something. But as I was reading about this gap, I definitely think it's been an advantage for me. I tend to not wait, and sometimes it's not the right decision, and then I'll go back and I'll reverse that decision. But I do tend to act pretty quickly, and I think it's, on a whole, benefited me over the years. So, what are you guys hearing? What are you thinking? Anything that you want to share around this topic? What is your typical? Anybody want to share what is your typical process when you take in information? What do you do with that information? Do you have a process on where you store the information that you're taking in? Do you have a place to dump this stuff? My mic is on, yes? Somebody?
Yeah, your mic's on.
Yes, you're good.
Are we just not resonating on this topic, guys? This is important.
I just ask a lot of questions. That's what I end up doing, and then, and once I have an answer, I intend to tell everybody about it. It's kind of
Yeah.
what I do.
So when I was researching this information action gap, one of the critical things for progress is curiosity. The people that was one of the factors that was in the list of things is the people that are having success, making the progress. They don't just consume and take action. They ask a lot of questions. So the fact that you're asking the questions, Pat, that's what's getting you engaged. And I've always said this about the agents. When agents come on board, they typically have this fear of asking questions. I don't want to sound, I don't want to sound like I'm unintelligent or I don't know what I'm doing. And my answer is always the same thing. My most successful agents over the years are the ones that ask the most questions. And the reason that is they're doing stuff. They're trying things. And when you start to try things, you run into new scenarios that you're forced to ask questions about. If you're not doing anything and you're not putting deals together and you're not trying to negotiate something new every day, you're not going to have any questions. Right? It's part of the reason that we've got this call. And part of the thing that scares me when we don't have questions on the call. Because to me, that's, hey, we're not taking in new information. We're not trying new stuff. We're not putting a new deal together. Right? I want you guys to be active as possible. Trying stuff, failing, trying again, failing, trying again. Right? So great share, Pat. Anybody else with any thoughts around this? Again.
Well, I think maybe the struggle to answer your question is because there isn't one answer to that, because if we're just listening to a podcast, sometimes we are just taking in information and it's not necessarily an action item. Yeah, the information we're taking in on a podcast, we may be able to integrate into the conversations we're having, but there doesn't always necessarily need to be an action plan around it. But to your point, if we're going to a conference or something like that, or a new like CRM is introduced, like I'm guilty of this. Like it's carving out the time to learn that system, and it's hard when, especially in our job, so a lot of our day can't be planned. We may think, oh, we have an open day to work on, something that we carved out time to do, and then something comes up. So it's just being diligent about making sure that, okay, if I didn't get to it today like I planned, making sure it just keeps getting added to the calendar so it stays top of mind and it doesn't go 6 months and then it's like, oh, shoot, guess I never did that. Maybe I'm not going to do it at all now.
Yep. I mean, look, at the extreme level, I'm not really consuming anything anymore if I'm not trying to find something actionable that I can take out of it. Very rarely am I just kind of aimlessly listening to something, consuming something. I'm very deliberate about the stuff that I am consuming, that I'm trying to get something out of this, and I think early, I was in this mode of just like, you got to read books and you got to read books and you got to read books. And I was trying to read a book a week. I think it's too much. I think a better approach is, a book a month, but deep into that book, taking diligent notes and creating actionable items out of that book. Going to a conference and not just taking a bunch of notes, but going, these are the 5 things I'm going to go back and implement. Listening to a podcast and being in a position where you can take voice notes or you can take pencil paper notes, however you like to do it, and get action items out of it. Are there going to be times where you're just kind of listening and maybe there's nothing? Sure. Right? But can you be a little bit more strategic with what you're consuming? If it's on something you're trying to work, right? Sometimes you just want to veg out and watch Suits. But if we're trying to get better at something, try and come out of there with an actionable item that you can test, that you can try. It might even just, you might learn that it works better than the way you were doing it before. Hey, the way I was doing it before is better than this way. Okay, now I know, I tried, I move on. Who else? Sue Anderson, he who asks is a fool for 5 minutes, but he who does not ask remains a fool forever. You bet. Who's got some struggles? Got to be some kind of a share around this. What do you got, Margareta?
Hey, I definitely ask questions. I have opinions. Kyle, I think the biggest thing is, and it comes with more experience or maybe age, it's understanding your limiting beliefs. Tony Robbins, all the gurus there talk about it. And sometimes I think people don't understand what that really is or what that is for themselves. Understanding your limiting beliefs is so ingrained in our mind that it's so hard to even understand that. So I think, it's one thing to train yourself, and this is why this is so important to be exposed to things and say, let me try that and just keep reading books, or it will finally catch on and out. My thought process will evolve. But I think that is the hardest thing that's holding like me back, I think, with so much pursuing new things, or just I think sometimes it's just even understanding that something's possible. And there's that the shortest mile run. When you see something being actually attainable by somebody else, you're like, well, maybe I can do it. So all those are the things that are holding us back.
And you mentioned something in there about opinions, right? And this is something that I'm just constantly trying to work on, not have opinions. Let go of that stuff. Just take in somebody else's side. You may still in the back of your mind think of something, but just trying to always be open to, you know what? Maybe I don't know everything that I think I know about this subject. Right? It's an area I think I've made significant strides, very opinionated, and really just trying to just keep an open mind to everything. Right? I had a situation dealing with another business owner. I see your hand, KB. I won't forget about you. Where discussing an employee that was executing on the daily, but so good employee, but wasn't taking to coaching. Right, couple of opportunities. Hey, you should do it this way. They still did it another way. And just kind of asking, hey, how do you think I should proceed with this scenario? And my first question is, did you have a conversation about why? Maybe somebody, a manager between you and them, is telling them to do it a different way. Maybe somebody at a past job told them to do it that way. Maybe something's going on, and maybe the blind spot is you, the way that you coached it, the way that you said it. Right. So even in that scenario where you are the boss and you're telling somebody, this is how I want you to do it, and they don't do it that way, just be open. Hey, Margareta, you've been a great employee. You're executing on the task, but there's been a couple of times I asked you to do it this way. Just curious, why'd you do it the other way? And it could just be not, they really aren't coachable or whatever, but maybe there's some reason. Who knows? Just ask the question, be curious, and see where it goes. What'd you have, KB?
No, I mean, you had just asked, what are people's biggest, like, your struggles and your hurdles. And for me, it's always, I go back to a book, and it's actually a relationship book, and it's called men are like waffles and women are spaghetti. And that, I swear to God, is my brain, right? So like the idea is men are able to compartmentalize different things in their life, and women, it just kind of all sticks together, right? Like spaghetti. And I think that I can apply this to the way my brain works with work as well, right? Because I feel like I can take a lot in, but then if I don't have a plan on how I'm going to actually execute what I'm taking in, and I take the time to really 100% understand what I need to do inside and out, then it just kind of gets stuck in that like winding spaghetti. So what I've kind of learned is anytime I take in a new piece of content that I feel like I can grow from, and that I think is the key to me, is like I'll hear things and I'm like, oh, that's cool, but it's not necessarily something that interests me, or it's not necessarily something that I need to learn. I don't try to learn that anymore. Like I just focus on the things that I know I can excel at. And that's actually going to grow me as a person. And then I chop my spaghetti into pieces. And I will literally like, okay, this piece of my spaghetti is getting worked on Monday, and this is what I'm focusing on, and I'm not going to allow anything else to stick to it. And that has really helped me because I can, and I mean, if you look at any of my papers, I have tons of papers on my desk, but they're broken down by days, because when something happens, I'll look at what I have on that day that I planned on doing already that I'm going to focus on so nothing sticks to it. And I'll be like, yep, not going to have the adequate amount of time to work on what I need to that day. I'm going to put it in the next day. And just really, I have to be visual with what my brain process is. You know what I mean? And that, I feel like that's really helped me.
Great share. Great share. Yeah. Look, it's going to be different for everybody. I'm just trying to get across this point of just try and take action. Just if you can do it just a little bit faster, maybe, than what you're doing today. Right? It doesn't have to be razor thin gap, right? But can we just close whatever gap you have today? Just close it a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. I think you're going to see some success coming out of that. So cool. Let's go with some roundtable stuff. Who's got a weird thing going on in a deal or an experience share that we can learn from? Oh, Heath.
Not necessarily roundtable stuff, but just a question for everyone, I guess. How
Let
do
me-
you guys? Oh,
Hold on. Oh, Heath, do we have an update from your situation from yesterday?
not really. Just
Okay.
taking it slow.
right.
Got to talk to an attorney. It's not for like 2 weeks, so it's not at the
Okay.
top of my list.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
But I guess, how do you guys structure your days? Because, I was talking to someone who's doing well for himself, and he basically told me he plans out every minute in his day. But when I try to do that, shit pops up, right? A deal's about to fall apart or something happens, and I feel like that's pretty common against, all realtors, where it's just things are not going to go as planned during your day. How do people plan that out, I guess?
My advice on this one, though, Heath, is at least have a plan going into the day, right? Because yes, real estate, any sales job can get kind of crazy. But I think most agents don't even have a plan going into the day. They just wake up and go, it's going to be a crazy day, so I'm not even going to try to plan it out. So I think at least having a plan and going, hey, I know based on this industry, the plan's not going to work out every single day. Right. But I'll get back on the bike tomorrow. I'll try to stick to the plan. So, and the more planning that's going to stick is the stuff at the beginning of the day, right? Having, hey, I want to do these 3 things every single afternoon. That's going to get difficult. I think as agents, the most opportunity to plan is mornings. And I think morning routine just becomes incredibly important. That if you're going to bed early and you're waking up early when everything's quiet, the emails aren't coming in, the texts aren't coming in, the phone calls aren't coming in, that's where you can play catch up. And then, in my opinion, you've got to start your day with prospecting every single day. So trying to keep that morning sacred for talking to people. as often as possible. Jen.
I think it's important to be realistic with what you can do and to plan in downtime. So, I used to plan, I like to plan, I guess you could say every minute, but yes, definitely things pop up, um, which kind of just adds to your day. So I used to kind of really run myself ragged because of that. And I realized that I need time, I need downtime. And just not planning things right on top of each other where I'm always rushing. I'd like to think I don't need the time to travel from, one place to the other, but John just has to remind me I can't teleport. And because, yeah, I just, I just pack too much into my day. So, and then unexpected things with client calls or your kids need something or whatever. I mean, things happen. So yeah, I think that it's helpful to just kind of have, every hour written down on a paper. And that's like the best way that I like to write it because I feel like, and I know we talked about this, right? If it's not on your planner, it doesn't happen because it needs a spot, it needs a home. And I try to do like things together. So if I'm out and about, things, what do I need while I'm there, kind of a thing. But I feel like that helps. But I also feel like when somebody who looks successful says something like that, we could think that, wow, they really pack their schedules and they're just super efficient. But I feel like a lot of successful people will sometimes say that they do fewer things and just try to um, manage their time well, or they don't take every call every time it rings, which is something I had to learn because that was contributing to my running myself ragged. And just kind of taking the time when I had it, because yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would overwhelm myself if everybody was doing a few things and then something else came in.
I think the thing that Jen said in there that's most impactful that I've noticed around high performers is doing less. But the less is of the thing that moves the needle. Right? In our business, that's prospecting. So they might work 4 hours a day, but in their whatever it is in their industry that's going to move the needle the most, that's what they're doing for those 4 hours. So I definitely think the higher up that you get, the less jam-packed your schedule is, but the more laser focused you are at doing the things that move the needle and not getting caught up in minutia. Isaac.
At the meeting the other day, Steve said something that resonated with me. It was less is more, and then you just started talking about it also, so I made that connection with it.
Anybody else want to just talk about how their day is getting structured or something that's just been a good tip that's benefited you? And always, I will say, like, if anybody tells you, you're going to get ahead by not burning the candle at, both ends in this work-life balance, I don't believe that. Right? I know you want to be aggressive. If you want to be aggressive and you want to have major success in this industry, you don't do it with 8-hour days. You do it with 12 and 16-hour days. You've got to build a foundation. So if you're looking for the balance, you can still have a nice little career. You want to be a top producer, it's not happening with balance and 8 hours a day of work. It's grind. If you hear anybody talking about the work-life balance, I promise you at some point they did the grind to get to where they are, to now have the ability to pick and choose what they're going to do, what they're going to focus on. But in those early years, it's just not going to be a balance. Period. So, Meg, you had your hand up.
I was just going to say, to Jen's point with the calendar, some people do better with a physical written out calendar. Some people like it on their phones or on their computer. I rely heavily on the Google Calendar. I have a family, kids with a lot of activities. For me, it's just having that calendar completely filled out. you know, with all my kids' stuff like ahead of time so that I know that I can fill things in around it. And, you know, it took me a long time to say no to people or to treat those appointments that, especially with my family, that were non-negotiables. But people I have found are flexible. They understand. You know, and then you have all those spaces available, you know, so you can schedule things with clients, you know, as opposed to feeling like, you know, I think I'm free. I don't know. Like you just have it in front of you and it's not even a question. So that's been huge for me.
Anybody else on structuring their day? Something that you found is working for you? KB.
I think that one thing we haven't really talked about is having the conversation with the people in your life, you know, like your family and your kids. They need to understand really what your goals are and what is it going to take to get you to where you need to be. And the support system at home is really important, right? So like Meg's saying, if you have your non-negotiables that you're going to stick in your calendar, put them in your calendar every single month, but then make sure that your partner, your significant other, your kids or whatever, you know, they know that you might have to leave at a drop of a hat and it's going to have to be something that they're supporting you with doing. So I think it's a really important conversation that people don't think to have with their people that are closest to them, but it will help you and it takes some of the stress out of it when you know that your whole family or all the people that matter are working toward the same goal with you and they understand what you're, you know, why you're doing what you're doing.
Great point. There is a lot of divorce involved with high achievers for sure. And I think it starts because of the miscommunication with the people that they're a lot of times doing it for, but not communicating that this is why they're doing it, who they're doing it for, and understanding what that person's priorities. Hey, totally support you doing that, but you know, can I get one weekend away, just us, right? Or your kids. Hey, Dad, that's cool, but can we do this, or this throughout the month? And if everybody's on the same page, you got a much better shot. Go ahead, Pat.
I think something just triggered in my mind when Megan was talking about, you know, people are open, you know, if they're serious and they won't want to actually buy or sell, or they will work around your schedule if they want to work with you. I find that sometimes I get these people that are like, I need to see this right now, and I'm not negotiable about it, and you need to move everything around your schedule to show me this property. And then I go there and show it to them, and 3 seconds later they're like, "Yeah, this isn't the one for me. Sorry. Have a nice day." And I never hear from that person again. And I'm not saying don't move stuff around and try to accommodate, but that to me, usually I walk away from those and go, this isn't a client I want to work with. And sometimes we have to do that, right? Sometimes we have to decide if it's not just I want to work every single client, I'm going to get every single deal. It's this isn't going to be a good fit for me. And so you got to move on. And so I find those people that are like super unnegotiable about my time tend to not be serious buyers, for sure. And then with regards to Chundi, I play golf with some people that are also agents, and we can never play in the morning because those people from 9 to noon every day, they're prospecting. And so when I'm like, hey, you guys want to play at 10 a.m. because I don't have time in the afternoon, they're like, nah, man, I got to prospect. That's my prospect time. I can't do it. And it's a non-negotiable. Like that's when they're doing their work. And so they could play in the afternoon and usually their appointments are later in the day. So I think you just have to yes, you have to work a ton, but also like you have to, like Steve was saying, your day is prospecting in the morning, then that's your prospecting time. And you can't be negotiable about it. Sorry, this is when I do this and I can't move it.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you had any other sort of a job, you clock in, you clock out, there's a manager that's expecting you to be there. And it's very easy to go golf at 10 a.m. when you're an agent. And so it takes discipline to say, nope, I'm working. So great point, Pat. Jen.
I just wanted to say that I feel like when people say that they have boundaries, people respect it. And you can hear something like that right away when you meet someone. And I those times stand out to me. I called an agent once, and on the voicemail it said, "I will be returning your call between these hours." And at first I thought, what the heck? Because I would never have thought to do something like that. It was, um, I was accommodating those people that wanted to see a house right now, and was running myself ragged. And I feel like sometimes great things came out of it and other times they didn't. It was a gamble. But I personally was running myself ragged, and I feel like there's only so much of that you can do. So when I think about the people that set those boundaries, I respected them. And I feel like, there was someone else that said, I don't take calls at that hour. I go to bed early. I respected that. I thought, wow, that's great. I should do that because I'm up taking calls and I'm tired. So those things just really stood out to me. And I think when you make those boundaries, and that's, people will respect it. And then if you don't have it, like I didn't, I got a call from a demanding client who never wanted to talk about anything important, that always would take his calls and just talk about whatever he wanted to talk about that was not urgent. He called me one night at 9, and I told him I was trying, I was trying to put my kids to bed and they were young. He just didn't care. He just started talking about nothing for an hour. And it was so upsetting. I wish that I knew better then, but I mean, I figured it out. It just stinks that, when you're going through all that, if you have family members that have to kind of suffer because you don't have boundaries, that sucks. Um, so anyway, I don't know. I feel like that's a really good question. I feel like it's, the whole family life balance or whatever that is, because it's real. And just figuring out what works for you. And like Steve was saying, what are your needs? What are your family's needs? Communicating it, and then setting those boundaries. And then hopefully, everything will just start to run smoothly as they can anyway.
Yeah. Great shares today, guys. Hopefully you're taking something away, whether it's regarding information and action, or structuring your day out. There was a lot of nuggets in here. So take something, put it into action, something that somebody shared today. And I wish you guys the best Friday and the weekend, and we'll talk to you again on Monday morning. All right. Take care. Go get them.